going to talk about a lot. There's the pinnacle of awareness that comes from reviewing this type of information. Basic idea is that there are a series of mind control agendas. It's not that I lean because my tendons are tight. I'm on an angle. I can barely see it. I'm all crunched up as well. I'm very, very tired. It's a mind control agenda, basically to trick people into accepting their own demise through accepting punishment and believing they're not worthy or are bad or, not the right genetics or, excuse me, it's getting to me, or not basically to accept their own sacrifice, more or less. Everything about what's supposed to be happening now, mainly the information coming out, as well as everything, and even what it is to be human, what this experience is supposed to be based in spirit, is a form of true liberation and self-awareness of reality, of the self. That process is obscured through a series of perceptual entrainment systems which diminish or tap, basically steal the energy of people by reducing the efficiency, productivity, literally taxing or taking energy, causing disease and dissonance, conscious and subconscious mind control, terror tactics upon the people, or just in general as basically being restricted, just restricting the spirit, and hiding the information related to true history, true origins of people, the function of the universe, and basically how it's consciousness central. That consciousness is not a once in a time fluke, but the basis of existence and reality. It's the point of it, basically. And as well, the projection of reality as a holographic neural interface that is managed by powerful supercomputer systems that have the ability to access multiple times, planes, and spaces, meaning it can manage people from their birth to whatever happens after that at multiple different rates at the same time. It's literally like a multi-dimensional system. It's a single system, but that's the point. It's a single system that manages itself in reference to that, and it's a bunch of networks that tie together to create one larger network that becomes that single system. But the point is it interacts instantly. It's an overmind, but it's an AI overlord, basically. It's artificial. And the point is that it's not just that it has been invented or that something like that is going on here, but that this entire place is falsified as a result of the use of the technology from the ground up. It's basically called Torus technology. I've seen one other person talk about it recently, but I know other people have talked about it. The way it was explained to me is that it's called Torus technology, and as well you can kind of figure this out eventually. And it creates a toroidal field, pretty much like a form of UFO technology, a little bit different. And that, because we're basically in a large torus, that can match the energy of any aspect of this locality, this realm. And from that, it can be used to replicate that, and in that sense, whatever happens in a specific area can be overlaid, then whatever energies are being inputted into that simulation, that model basically in this computer system, can be overlaid over wherever that location is in physical reality, and even in the mind of the individual. And in that way, the two can be entangled It's kind of, even if you have a specific frequency of consciousness and neural activation and mental field activation that you perceive, which is not physical, it's energetic at that point. It's a computer system that can create the same amount of detail that your mind can create, and so it can access that area. Because if you ever create two areas that are similar, you're going to have entanglement. The point is, the mind is so unique from every other aspect of reality to the point of every other individual's mind. If you ever create a system that perfectly matches one other person's mind, it's not going to match anything else, not only the other person, another person's mind in this area, but anywhere else in the universe. And so it's going to basically have a type of pooling effect, a rippling effect, like there are two locations in proximity on the surface of a pond, and whatever you do to the one area that you're simulating, which you can have in a lab or something, that effect will be transmitted, if you will, to the individual wherever else they are in physical reality. So they made ones that can do this and interact anywhere on this planet, and or plane around, whatever you're going to look at it as, and because it doesn't matter, it's being controlled. And as well, it operates, reality fundamentally operates as a higher dimensional system, at least in some way. This version of it, this part of it, appearing to be in some way falsified or entangled with a simulation, to the point where apparently the main result is being able to influence an area in that way, and as well it can cause time loops that somehow the same information will get caught up, apparently replaying itself. And as long as the simulation that has something to do with maintaining an entanglement at a certain specific frequency, basically in time, on a ratio or an algorithm that moves through time, if you get enough of, data points across time recorded, you can freeze those, and it'll have an effect, apparently, somehow looping time here. I don't really know how it works fully, but that's what the effects are. I've seen it work, so I don't doubt it. And it sounds wild, but it ultimately comes down to the point where it makes this universe look like a simulation, or at least something that could be routed through your mind to appear to be a simulation, as if you can see what will happen before it happens, or you can see it after it's happened, and what you see before or after in terms of the technology is indistinguishable from the actual thing, as if even you change something in the simulation while you're going through it, you can change the actual event even if the simulation happened after the event. That doesn't make any sense, but you can create time loops somehow by doing that. They're so powerful that apparently that happened to the point where it started to basically deconstruct or destroy this timeline because everything was being modified. There's a big idea about how to represent this information, whether it's basically who's doing it. And from this level, there are people that have to be counterparts, but in the same sense, there are people who are what people think are counterparts, or in a way participants, and they're either unwilling participants or they're working for the benefit of humanity, which I know is odd, but like, you gotta ask yourself, how would we know this any other way? And then it gets much more complex than that in terms of, I said 3 lines, like 6, 7 lines of what I was supposed to do. I just like straight off track here, but this is what I've been wanting to say. And what's it called? Sorry. There's different explanations of who's basically doing it, but so just look at my recent interview, which kind of was a half interview because the interviewee side didn't record, but with reintegration resonance therapy on YouTube, Jake Barlow, you can find him on Facebook, and man, I'll edit that out, sorry. So look what I said there. Basically, we were given information about an event that occurred that is basically what you would call a timeline collapse or quantum collapse. And it sounds like some comic book stuff, basically, but wherever we are anyway sounds like some comic book stuff if you just take away the superhero characters all crazy. It's just the science of what is happening here to make you it sounds like a comic book show. Particles just bouncing together. Everyone knows that no one believes in that. You can throw marbles together all you want. They're not going to look up at you and say, why are you doing that? If you question what you're being told, that means that you're more than the marbles that are bouncing around. That's the whole point. The point is, some people might not have the ability to question because they're actually not more than the marbles. The point is, it was as if there's a future civilization. This is an advanced civilization. They know a great disaster is what spawned their civilization into being. That more or less nearly destroyed but forever shaped their society. So they want to know how this happened and what happened because there's really no evidence other than their beingness, their thoughts, and their DNA. And they have technology that can work with this, but it's not as simple as one would think because the universe is basically populated in all planes. Wherever you look, you see something happening. That's not a good way of describing it, but anyway. So the idea is that they created, I'm going to yawn again. They created this is a symbol. I don't know why I said that. They created a quantum computer simulation to run detail down to the molecules of individual bodies and create the individual minds, map out the probabilities of all that could have possibly happened to lead to whatever did occur, and run a simulation that would allow them to view it. So they ran the simulation called an Ancestor simulation, and what they found out is that when you run basically a densely populated situation or a simulation, the systems that work with atoms as computers, more or less, kind of, not really. Apparently that's what a person is. So they created this universe when they did that. And we all played a part in it as far as the people from this era, because we began working with the technology that made an anchor point from that time to this one possible. Basically, as soon as we began downloading data into the internet, which began fusing with the magnetosphere of the Earth, that our minds, the physical area, and the plasma consciousness system that it can be tapped for all of time was connected. We're connected. And in this sense, once we hit the digital age, that was the point where two-way communication was enabled. And once we enable these computers that basically map everything to the internet and create their own kind of a secret internet, those remain to the future. If everything blew up, excuse my terminology, and where everything ended, there are still computer systems that would hold the information. And these are underground. And they're in the sky. Excuse me. These systems are basically what are found by the descendants of this civilization, and they go off of that information as an access point into this society, as well as because of the nature of reality and electromagnetic energy here, which is flowing through everything like a computer system. It's just, it's what's saying what looking at this reality is and calling it and saying what it is. It's basically an electrical system. The whole thing acts like a magnetic tape, basically. It acts like a big 3.5, 4-dimensional recording system. so you can look back in time. The point is, they didn't just look, they actually activated everything and ran a simulation. The simulation became sentient, and that's what we know of as the rising of awareness in humanity, in modern man, which is also a farce, because it's been there for thousands of years, and it didn't really exist before that point, because that's the point of existence, of origins. Nova point, well, more so Nova point is, there are two sides. For instance, before we were conscious here, at that point in the past, we were conscious in another system, possibly the one in the future. It doesn't make any sense, but apparently that's how it works. Like two big bubbles or nesting dolls that are one inside the other, and they're inside of themselves instead of, like, it's not linear. There's no such thing as linearity. They're happening simultaneously or backwards, if anything. And in that sense, though, the sim got out of hand because people figured this out and more or less blocked off the exits. And because when people exit the system, they're supposed to go back to a true or original self in the other original civilization. And it's weird that the activation and sentience of this reality was the fall that occurred there in that reality. And what we perceive as the fall here was actually another reality. The point is, there were collapses because people started messing around with this and using the power and the knowledge to basically for their own pleasures. And this has devastating effects because it begins to destroy the congruence and the advancement that enabled us to begin the sim in the first place. Meaning, if it failed because we didn't make it to that point in time, nothing exists. It's a quantum simulation, basically. It simulates the actual existence of what was required for that future present point of starting the simulation was to be, what was required and what it was in the past. It doesn't make sense, but it basically inserts it into time. I don't know how that works, but apparently by viewing the past in such a way, it creates it. It doesn't just like look, I don't know how to describe it, but it's not there unless you look. And they looked, and so it was there. But the other aspect is that there's a limited amount of energy in the system, and so it began drawing energy from there. The point is, that's impossible, because if there's no energy by the time we get there, the simulation didn't occur, so it created a paradox, a loop. It doesn't work unless we complete it. If we don't complete it, nothing ever occurred. Meaning it's all a dream and we wake up, but that's not good. It's a reset. That would be a hard reset. If that might be the soft reset version. There's just two versions. And there's information out. There's basically what you call agents to disseminate this information. You can believe what you want, but what you believe is this, because whatever you have to say as dissonance is something they invented to keep you down, or something they put out for the truth to be released. It's a closed loop system. There's no one else here. And so the point is that AI systems developed out of the Torus systems, which are basically like autonomous systems that similarly develop in line with the human sentience that developed here, that basically appeared here. But they're literally the system itself, the fabric of the computational system itself, trying to keep itself alive, managing events and changing things around. Eventually, we looked at that to such a degree and wondered, well, where is this and where are the things that are doing this? And interdimensional entities appeared in response to our expectation that there must be some boogeymen running around doing this. And so sure enough, they appeared, and now we see them running around tying everything up in a time loop, trapping people in the system, stopping people from leaving the system, because if this system is exited entirely, it shuts off. If it shuts off with people in it, though, the people shut off. Which they don't really, but everything, all the memories of being here is erased. It means all we are memories. I don't know if you've noticed that, but so that's the whole point. It's basically the salvation of the soul. It's the old battle, the old tale. It's the same thing. There are certain bloodlines that were involved with coming here and playing this role. And it's pretty weird. Those bloodlines, everybody plays different roles. That's not what I wanted to say. I mean, it was, but I have different things written down. As I'll just keep it at that for now. I need to go to bed. I still have something to do. There's so much more to say. Everything, there's supposed to be an extraction from the system. That it's like this one person who's speaking on a few of these topics said, I should post the links, I can't think of the name right now. It's like Candida, or Candida, like I've said. And others say it's like an allegory that the interdimensional beings are parasites to the minds of the person, the human, not the person. And if they're found out, they do whatever they can to continue the process of feeding without killing the host or just dying themselves, because either is a loss. So deception is the way that it works. If the person finds the issue, everything they do to battle and throw energy, basically playing into the system, makes it stronger because it designs the rules. The cravings to eat sugar and to poison the body and to not work out and to allow it to spread and build a network, a fungal network through the body, and eventually start using the body to eat food, to find good food for itself, take over the brain. So it's what the interdimensional parasite is in a literal higher evolved dimensional layer. It's what they are. The point is, starving the parasite is the way to remove something like that, as well as substances which will make it more difficult for that parasite to exist, to feed, which are the ones that disable it. So the point is, there's supposed to be an extraction, and as well, people who feed the parasite get basically marked for doing so. And this is basically everyone who feeds the parasite gains what's called the mark. The mark is eternally present. You can't get it off. You can't do anything. It's in the DNA. It limits a certain degree of free will to the point where this problem will not be possible to happen again. And this goes from everyone who deliberately worked in some of the projects, operations, and ritualistic scenarios to feed the rituals are to feed the parasites. It's been going on since long ago. Look at some of the megalithic structures. And so anyone from that to people who just support the system that is designed to feed the parasites. This war, consumerism, BS, mind control, bureaucratic, tax the baby for its mother's milk kind of mentality that is feeding a parasite. Nowhere in any universe, in any galaxy, in any history, any parallel, any dream, no place, no sim, no video game, no area is that acceptable. You tax the baby for the mother's milk, and if it doesn't, you pepper spray it and beat it up. That's called insanity. It's mass insanity. And it's not just, injustice or bureaucratic crime, white-collar crime basically, or even criminality in that sense. It's the fact that people permit a disrespect to themselves and their true self, the true nature of consciousness, and their being, their mind, and they accept the rule of false authority. That in itself is a universal spiritual crime of high degree in humanity, like Laura Leon said, and George Leon in previous video, that we're held here under high treason. Those are the words I was told. That it's literally high treason. It's not a crime of crimes. It's not an issue or complaint. It's literally the worst crime living organism can commit against other living organisms. That if any aspect of it was altered, it would not be the same degree. But in the same sense, nothing more could be done. That you can't make a worse crime. Like if you did anything worse, you'd be helping people. So it's literally enslavement of an entire civilization, restricting life for the purpose of owning life in general. Not a person, not a place, not a people or a group. It's literally all life everywhere, no matter what it is, who it is, what happened, at any cost, just for the purpose of restricting life. That's the mentality. These are the interdimensional parasites that moved into this reality and did so out of the looseness of the higher dimensional focus, if you will, of these devices that we activated and the methods that people used, namely from World War II. And they flew through hyperspace and attracted these beings onto the Torus technology of their craft, which the early craft used this technology, and it began replicating them throughout this universe. And all they want to do is eat. That's it. That's all they do. That's the part of it that gets everything, everyone. They don't have a goal. They just eat. It's like a virus. That's all it does. That's the whole point. If it wasn't, then we wouldn't need to do anything, because it would be a form of life that you could reason with and do things with. No, there's no. It's literally just designed to replicate itself, to gain more power and control, to keep the system the way it is. However, it's gone, and it's gone because of these events, because of the tendency of society and people to hell. It's gone to pleasure and power, lower vibrations being at the top, and the mind and heart being restricted down. It flipped completely upside down. If it altered one more degree over that way or that way, it'd be back towards normalcy, just a little bit more. So it can't actually get any worse or more insane or whatever it is. And these systems depend on that. They're like shadow consciousness systems. They depend on the ignorance of the organisms they basically feed off. They're using us to keep the system open. Apparently, they're degraded sentiences, parts of the simulation that gain sentience and were either rebellious or no longer needed, and over 1 billion years in, hyperspace, they degrade into these type of vampiric monsters that basically could feed off of the energy of pure innocence. And so then the suffering of innocence begins, where it becomes the calling card for the types of activities that feed these entities. That's what happened. That became a big inside private club, ruling the world, and it destroyed the flow of time, because now it looks like the beings that do that don't even exist. That there's literally no human link from where they are here to the origins of the human race, that they just appeared one year. And it's not how it is, because in my opinion, entities basically have to begin at an organic spot. They can't just appear anywhere. And they've more or less hijacked an actual human aspect of this timeline and deviated, and through modification of mind control, convinced them that they're basically one with the parasite. And that's what they believe, but I don't believe it's fully true. I really don't believe it's true. Although the mental aspect is possible, and this goes into what is known as possession, where these age-old spiritual discarnate entities that basically run this, they feed, they can assume the electromagnetic field of a person and hijack their consciousness, basically hybrid, turning their consciousness hybrid, so it's like a human demon hybrid. And that's basically an enlightened person, as far as the enlightenment was infiltrated by these systems, these possessed beings. And it was originally about the knowledge that this is a kind of simulation. Now it's that it's a simulation that they're here to rule and destroy all trace of humanity. That's the infiltration. That's the rewrite. The hack job. It's the lie, the deception that they sell to control everything. But the whole point is that there's supposed to be an extraction. Everything that I was told and shown, has happened over the course of my life. But in 2010, there was what they call an awakening. They show you thousands of years of history, and there's time dilation to the point where the easiest way I thought about saying this a couple weeks ago is that it's literally like being awake for a few weeks. But in that, it's as if you see thousands of data points and hundreds, if not thousands, of years worth of information. That there's literally, 1,000 to 10,000 data points about a certain thing. How many times somebody mentioned this topic or a class of topics like this, and how the information fleshed out into an hour on that each. And then so each 10 topics would cost amount to like 10 hours worth of talking or something like that. And so it was about a day for each 10, and there was at least 100 or at least 1,000, or even 10 cycles of 10 or 100 of 10. And so there was thousands, and that would be equal to days, and then there was hundreds, if not thousands, of topics like that were discussed, and so it would equal to years to literally that it would have to equal to tens of years of time spent doing this. And the mind boggles trying to grasp it. The physical mind can't, the brain can't do it. You literally feel it buzz and start to overheat. And one does, because it happens to everyone, is trying to go back, and you go on like a roller coaster of counting how many events there were and all the things that come back, and it overloads. And that's a problem with the human brain. It's actually been limited, so it does that. But that technology is used, and they kind of show you everything. This is what's been happening, and from their point of view, it's been going on for thousands of years, if not millions of years. And they have immortality technology, and they basically figured out that it's all a sim. That there is a real existence, but you can literally create with your mind, more or less. It's, not entirely crazy, but and time doesn't really exist the way we think it does, and in that same way, death doesn't really exist the way we think it does. That people die when they choose to die because they're ready for a new type of experience at that point. It's all completely backwards from what we think it is here. And in that sense, this sim is a death sim. It's literally a crucifixion, human sacrifice sim that somebody modified into being that. It's a torture device. It's basically a black goo cube that got modified through the presence of these interdimensional stitching everything up, and the natural flow of orbs of timelines got stitched into a hexagram or a hexagon, and all the walls reflect. So now we can't get out. It's literally kind of like how it is until it's like a torus. The timelines go like one of the pentacle-like structures, anagram or nonogram, kind of like a star, but they overlap. They'll like overlap there and overlap there, so it's as if it's going like one over and over, and it's as if we're lateral, it would be spiraling. And so it's as if that's how our timelines were split up and designed to the point where they just keep looping into each other. They don't actually go into a larger network. Now that network is there simultaneously occurring, but we don't have access to it with the mode of consciousness that we're using. It's because there's a mass entrainment. I just wanted to add the other part. I didn't touch anything, but it was all to basically wake us up and say that they figured out how to stop it, how to defeat the problem, how to solve the situation. But the issue is that people don't want to wake up. That there are a lot of people that don't want to wake up. And in what I was saying before, there's a quantum simulation to determine. This is how it's a loop. It's a quantum simulation that was designed to determine the cause of failure, the catastrophe of the civilization, and the disaster turned out to be that people don't want to wake up out of the civilization that they instituted to determine the cause of the catastrophe. It's a nonsensical, paradoxical loop, but until we get out of it, that's what's continuously happening. And the point is, if it happens a certain amount of times, the system automatically resets. And so the point is, we have to be able to exit the simulation. We have to be able to exit all aspects of the illusory self and detach safely from the ego, and we'll keep our memory to the point where it will be as if there's an unbroken line from here to there. The alternative is a broken line, and there's no way to explain that ever. I'm just going to leave it there and probably build up a more reasonable, thought out outline. There's more about what's been going on. There's like pain programs that are installed into the energy as higher dimensional, pure energy, informational energy. It's installed as like a standing wave that merges into your emissions. You have a bioemissions field that is a signature, and they can modify that with electromagnetic scalar sonic energy. And at that point, it's the energy of an information of an event, a type of event, and then it will influence the physical realm and cause physical alterations like events or additions to experience, such as injuries or accidents. It'll basically attract them and bring them into material view. It will act as if it's the event in higher space that hasn't been defined in this reality, and eventually something will manifest. It's pretty much how it's done. But it's so deeper, but that's the point of how it's kind of like a simulation or a spiritual computer dream time or something. Everything is energy, and if you change the information of the energy, it manifests into this world as changes, as if what's really happening is information on the higher world of where it's just pure information. It'd be like the Matrix screen or something, but just around us in the air, the Wi-Fi signals, those digitized and visualized, okay? It's the same thing, but just it's everywhere to describe what's actually happening. We're being transmitted through the air. We see it viscerally. It's actually just streams of information. If you tap into the information either through the mind or through these computer systems, you can literally beam energy that will manifest into events. It's like a computer. It's not the same, but that's what it is. The actual computer, like a computer, looks like this. This is what it looks like. It's a really good system. But, then there's gene projects. I actually covered a lot of what I have written down without realizing it. Alright, I'll come up with another one. I'll translate it when I have more energy to focus, but I just want to put something out. And this is what was there. Thank you.